And the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. If you currently let the record show that the board met in executive session to consider collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service and Gentlemen Taylor Law. We will start. Dr. Pirosa, please, with the student recognition.
Let's join me. We'll do it from here. It's a little less awkward.
Yes, let's.
So, hello everyone. So, Carla Quinones. That's all. How are you? Good. Doesn't say that. Okay. So, Carla is the recipient of the Senator Anna M. Kaplan Hispanic Heritage Leadership Award. The senator asked each high school in her district to nominate junior or senior students of Hispanic descent who demonstrate leadership and promote positive awareness of Latinos at school and in public life. Carla was recognized at Senator Kaplan's Hispanic Heritage Celebration on October 10, 2019 at the Port Washington Public Library. Carla Quinones is a current senior at North Shore High School and is someone who definitely sheds positive light on the Hispanic community at our high school. She was born in New York to a Peruvian mother and a Peruvian father. She spent her younger years moving back and forth between Peru and various areas of New York and landed here as a freshman. That's impressive. In her Spanish heritage class, Carla always took all the work seriously and always went above and beyond to learn both the Spanish language and cultural information about all of the Spanish-speaking countries. She was always encouraging her classmates, regardless of their level of Spanish, and played an important role as a student in uniting the mixed class of various Spanish abilities and geographical backgrounds. Her final project in the class was to write an original fictional story in which she met a person from a Spanish-speaking background who played a significant role in the social justice cause, and she wrote about how life would be if she had met Magna Portal, a women's rights activist from Peru. Carla is interested in political issues and participated in a student-organized group that would reach out to all students who felt excluded for whatever reason to try to help combat exclusion within the community. Carla also represents her school as a member of the swim team, a member of the National Honor Society, a future member of the World Language Honor Society for Spanish, and has her art displayed publicly in the school always. I am tired for you. Academically, Carla said she enjoys her Spanish and math classes the most. Math because there's only one answer, maybe. And Spanish because of customs and food, speaking another language with others, and developing a different perspective of the world. Congratulations. And so what we have for you is, this is very nice and comfortable. Beautiful. So here is a certificate for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and you get the North Shore pen for you. And so we will take your picture, and you can come on around the front.
Step in front of them. You don't have to shoot.
No one?
Ready? Nice. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Nice.
Thank you for that description, and thank you for coming tonight. It was just really wonderful to get to hear about these achievements. Trustees, we will move on to action item 3, which is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion? I have a motion, second, all in favor? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the treasurer's report. Do I have a motion? And a second? Any questions on the treasurer's report? All in favor? Thank you. Next, superintendent, you have your report.
So last Friday night, we went to Oxford University. We watched the high school football team play edge. They hung in there the whole night. It was a tough game, but it is what it is. Sometimes you just have to play folks who are better.
Better than everyone.
Better than ever. And so the score was 60-21, but scoring 3 touchdowns against Plain Edge is pretty impressive in and of itself. So congratulations the team. We'll get them up there as well. Once the women finish up their winning season, we'll figure out where we are with other athletes. Okay, so tonight we have a presentation from Mr. Lang and Mr. Doherty on we're framing out as educating the whole child, presentation on wellness and vaping, and the efforts that the district has engaged in, our aspirations of where we would like to go moving forward. And so we are, it was exciting to see how much work has been happening and has happened in a reasonably short period of time. So welcome. Very cool news from last week. We Newsday ranked North Shore High School as one of the best STEM high schools in the nation, ranked 321 out of 5,000, which is really impressive. So I'm always a little leery about rankings in general, because you can be on a list one year and not on it the next, and there's all sorts of criterion. But the good news about this ranking in particular is that Newsweek is has a really strong ranking system, but also to be in the conversation after we put so much effort and focus into the STEM program is really impressive. So our teachers are really doing a nice job. The bond referendum is coming up 2 weeks from Tuesday, December 10th. Again, we're just out spending a lot of time talking with folks about what is in it and what is next. The 2020-21 calendar is on the agenda for tonight, so the folks can stop getting. And then we are really gearing up in our budget development process. So at this point, we've started our line-by-line meetings with all of our administrators. We're about 3 or 4 or 5 of them in, and then we'll be bringing that to the board before you know it. So good stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Then we'll move on to the report from yesterday.
Thank you for having us. So this past Wednesday, we held at the community superintendent community forum. The SGO helped with childcare. That went really well.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
Pajama story time.
Yeah, pajama story time. I wore my weekly pajamas, and we had a fun time. There were more volunteers than there were children, so it was kind of a funny dynamic in there, but it went really well.
And it was cold that night.
Yeah,
Right?
very cold.
Well, we're always looking for things for our high schoolers to do, and maybe they could have a pajama night party.
It was great. We tucked them in the back on the landing. They were going to read in the front. I said, you know what? They call that little circle back there, the magic carpet area, and off they went. And the kids were super excited.
New idea, book club.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that would be great. It was a great time. So going forward, we plan to do something that the SGO has been looking to do for a long time, which is rewriting the bylaws. The bylaws that we currently have they're about 16 years old, and we don't follow them really. and it's kind of evolved over time. So in order to make our meetings more structured, we want to completely rewrite them and give it a new approach to how we structure SGO, just so we can make it more efficient. So we're going to be doing that in the coming weeks.
And then at last meeting, I mentioned the possibility of SGO purchasing urinal dividers, and you mentioned how there's the bond, and that might be part of the bond. But like SGO, like we would be able to add, like we would be able to put the urinal dividers into the bathrooms. Before the end of this year. So I was just like wondering, like what's like how long would it take for the construction to begin if it gets put on the bond?
So longer than that. So why don't we figure out a time to get together and talk about this? Because if there are places that are highly problematic, we can have a conversation about that. And maybe not wait for the bond. But I do sort of want to reiterate from the last time, I would much rather you not spend your money on urinal dividers, right? So if there's a way that you can spend your money on other things for the school, let's figure out what those are, and let me figure out a way to get the urinal dividers. All right, so check in with Mr. Cousins' office, and Ms. Baker will get a hold of us, and we'll get some I'll come here. We'll get some okay?
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you so much, we appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
With that, we will move on to our regular business, which is our discussion on quality levels.
Very good. So welcome, Don. Dan, I'll turn this over to you. The board has invitation slides and your summary of the
All right, good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm very excited to talk to you about all the amazing wellness programs we have in the district. Like Dr. Drizzo said, kind of areas of focus that we need to look at moving forward. Being new to the district, I thought I would just kind of touch a little bit on my transition here and some observations I've made. When I was interviewing for the job and researching the position, social emotional learning, wellness, educating the whole child jumped out at me. It's something that drew me to apply here. But you never really know if you step in the building if that's true or not. And I'm happy to report that everyone I've met, from administrators to teachers to students to board members, it really is an emphasis. And even asked to Don and being asked to be here tonight kind of is a testament to that. So there's some great things happening, but there's also some areas of focus again that I've noticed that we can kind of work towards, and we'll talk about that at the end. When Peter asked me to present on wellness, educating the whole child, and vaping, my first thought was that's a lot of topics. How long do I have? He said 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, I'll do the best I can. So as I go through tonight, I'll try to get through everything. I will take questions at the end. When I started putting the slides together, though, there was a recurring theme and a recurring emphasis on some certain things in terms of importance of helping students feel valued, equipping them with coping skills, and really building a strong foundation. And I came across this quote that you see up on the screen that's in your slides. Beneath every behavior, there's a feeling. Beneath every feeling, there's a need. And when we meet that need, rather than focus on the behavior, we begin to deal with the cause and not the symptom. And when I came across this quote, I felt like I really tied all the different pieces together of vaping, wellness, students' decision-making, and that's really the emphasis of all the programs you're going to see tonight, and you'll see how everything kind of ties together. Also pictured here is Stephen Carr, our elementary health and wellness teacher, and Carolyn DeFreda, our elementary counselor. This slide shows parts of the curriculum from counseling, parts of the curriculum from health and wellness. It's not everything, and you'll notice there's not a lot of crossover, and that's purposeful. We met over the summer, Carolyn and myself, to write the elementary counseling curriculum, and we worked with Don and Meg and the health and phys ed staff to write the health curriculum as well. And really the emphasis of both curriculums is teaching students how to be healthy, teaching students how to regulate their emotions, make positive and informed decisions, empathize with others, learn coping skills. The addition of these 2 staff members really adds for a K through 12 model in terms of health and wellness and counseling. And really the goal should be, as educators, not to, sometimes people get caught up in how do you remove stress, right? How do you take it away? I think as educators, it's how to teach students how to manage that stress and how to deal with it and equip them with skills to do so. And that's really an emphasis of both curriculums. Just some initiatives that we have in place. We're going to add, I've already spoken to Shelley about adding a counseling wellness page to the elementary websites for resources for parents. We've been sending out K through 12 counseling and wellness newsletters. That includes articles for parents, it includes pieces of the curriculum, it shows student work, and that is both health and counseling curriculum. And the counseling curriculum, as I said, includes lessons on peer pressure as well, decision making, conflict resolution. Don's going to touch on the health curriculum a little bit.
First, I want to thank Dan for doing so much work to get this organized. I was out for a couple months last year, and I came back. It's almost like a whole different world. Dr. Gia Rizzo said that a lot of things have happened in a short time. It really has happened from March to coming back full-time September. It's like a whole different place when it goes to wellness and health. First, as Dan mentioned, the health curriculum K through 5 was written this summer. It was reinstated, thankfully, this year after being absent for a couple of years in the way it should have been done. And when they wrote the curriculum, they tied it in to the SBUs, the counseling curriculum, the humanities elementary curriculum. So now it's a lot of the same verbiage going back and forth. So kids are really getting a lot out of it through the crossover. And this summer, the plan is to rewrite the 6 through 12 curriculum using the same kind of model, so that we're all running on the same page, K through 12, by the time we start in September. And the staff that's been put together, the counselor and Steve, they've been phenomenal. Dan has been phenomenal in organizing a lot of these things and bringing some of these programs to us. So it's been a pleasure to come back and see all the work that's been done. As you can see on the slide, there's a lot of different topics on the health and wellness curriculum, but the overriding importance is the decision making. Through this curriculum, we want to give the kids the information that they need to make correct decisions in life, whether it's about nutrition, whether it's fitness, whether it's about the use of tobacco, alcohol, and drugs. We want them to be able to look back on what they've learned in the health and the wellness and be able to make decisions that can be beneficial and healthy for them, that they can look back on the rest of their life and make healthy lifestyles and remain healthy people.
Yeah, for me it was really nice to come in with Carol and Steven and kind of start this work together. And again, it's about building that strong foundation and hopefully in the long term that this will definitely pay off for our students. Here's just an example of some student work. The top 2 poster boards are from a growth mindset lesson that Carol DeFreda did at, I believe, Glenhead. In the bottom right is a lesson from Stephen Carr on a meta moment. So if you're familiar with the ruler principles, ruler stands for recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, and regulating. And it's all about emotional regulation. You'll see it's taking the student through a situation, right? So something happens, they have a feeling, which is the second picture. You're recognizing that feeling, you're understanding that feeling, and you're starting to label that feeling. Then you're going to take a meta moment. You're going to stop, think about how you want to proceed, right? Picture your best self. And that part is something that they work on. They talk about what your best self is, they create it, they talk about what that might look like, and then they move forward from there and they strategize and hopefully make a better decision than not labeling their emotions and moving on. I was able to go see Mark Rathig, who's the creator of Ruler Speak, a couple weeks ago, and one of his quotes jumped out at me. He said, you have to name it to tame it. And that's really kind of what we're working with students on in terms of really recognizing those emotions, understanding what they are, and then moving on from them. One of the counselors went to a mindfulness workshop, and she came back and she was like, I heard this great quote, and it was about, we tell students, you get what you get, you don't get upset. And the quote was, you get what you get, and you sit with upset. And we teach you how to deal with those emotions. And that was something that I thought kind of speaks to what we're doing with students. Just some school-wide programs. Beautiful Me is a self-esteem program run through the Hans Foundation, which is based out of Fulton Park. It is just for girls. We took that curriculum, Stephen Carr, Karen, Bridget Pine, and myself, Don, and worked on transposing it for boys. We ran the program for all of Glenwood Landing, 4th and 5th grade. We're going to do it for Glen Head and SEPA. Carolyn, Bridget, and a couple other staff members, some of the social workers ran it for all the girls, and it's on building up their self-esteem, kind of picturing that next self and moving forward. And as I said, we're planning to do that with the boys, which I'm really excited about. We actually, Bridget and I were emailing today about dates in December and January to implement that. And self-esteem obviously ties into the vaping, ties into the decision-making. Students feel better about themselves. Hopefully they don't make those negative decisions. Second picture, the elementary school and the middle school both celebrated World Kindness Day. And again, talked about the science of being kind and what that does and how that makes students make more positive decisions as well. Beautiful Me is also run through Karen Finn, our social worker in the middle school, for the 6th graders. That's been in place already. Unity Day was celebrated in the middle school and the high school. You walk by the posters coming in here. And that is an anti-bullying campaign where the counselors created activities for students to do during E3 squad in terms of talking about bullying, talking about being an upstander. They had a mix it up day at lunch where they sat with different students, and it's another one of those experiences that is unifying between teachers and students in terms of having students feel valued. So Everyone Matters Day was an amazing experience at the middle school. I was able to go and witness the students, and everyone seemed to just really be taking in the moment. What stood out to me is that it forced some of the students out of their comfort zone, and it was really a day focused on stress management and how we deal with stress. So some of the activities included mindful drumming, hiking, Zumba, yoga. There was a spa. Dr. Giarrizzo was at the spa. I thought about putting a picture up here with him with the cucumbers on his eyes, but I chose not to. But again, it was another unifying experience for students, and it really did deal with, I think it showed some students how some of the things that they already do can help manage stress. Like if you enjoy coloring, that's a stress relief. If you enjoy sports, that's a stress relief. Music. So I think it was really helpful for them. And some of the students, at the end of the day, they asked who didn't get their first or second choice and was forced to do something different. And it was almost everyone. And then they said, did you enjoy that experience? And the majority of them raised their hand and said, it was valuable that they tried something new, which is important to teach also. So just some K through 12 initiatives that are in place for both counseling and wellness. Parent wellness nights, we ran a middle school wellness night, and we had presentations on social media, raising a resilient child, and roles of the mental health team. And the roles of the mental health team was myself, speaking from a counseling perspective, Tony Capetti, the social worker, Bob McKee, the psychologist, and we talked about typical versus atypical behavior at that age level, what the middle school life looks like, and then who to contact and how to make that phone call and what that might look like, and the importance of being honest when you make that phone call. We're in the process of scheduling mental health nights or wellness nights for elementary and high school. I think it would be important for that to be a K through 12 project. Trusted adult exit tickets, one of the district goals is to try to pinpoint who has trusted adults within their building. So the counseling staff got together and came up with a plan for that. It's already started in the elementary school. We're going to do trusted adult exit tickets. So when Mr. Prada goes in and teaches a lesson, at the end of her lesson, she gives the students an exit ticket, which she does normally anyway to get feedback from the students, but it's asking who their trusted adult is in the building, and she educates them on what that means. And then we will get those back and work with the principals on how to pair those students up organically, meaning not like a forced pairing of Ms. Jones is going to work with Johnny, but they may not have anything in common. Talking to the staff at a faculty meeting, having the faculty highlight students that they have relationships with, and then cross-referencing, did any of those students not have a trusted adult? And if there's a student that doesn't fall on either list, then really kind of diving into what the students are interested in and trying to pair them up. At the middle school and high school, we're going to use Google Forms to do that. It'll come back to us in a spreadsheet. And then by grade level in the middle school, because we have grade level counselors, same idea, we'll meet and talk about how to pair those students up, and the same idea in the high school through the push-in lessons. We'll get that back, and I think a similar model in terms of faculty meetings and trying to find who those students are. Research shows that students that are connected to adults, students that are connected to the school perform better and also are less likely to use substances. So again, it all kind of ties together. We're also evaluating how time is being used in each building in terms of brain breaks and extended play in the elementary school, and that was new for this year from what I understand, and we'll evaluate kind of how that worked out at the end of the year. And then focus on wellness with phys ed teachers. Did you want to touch on that?
This year, for the first time, we have a group that meets Dan, myself, Dr. Zuglionis. Also, we meet about health and wellness a couple times during the year. And the first meeting, we talked about what else can we do to relieve some stress from the students. So we came up with one of the things was our phys ed teachers, instead of having them proctor during midterms and finals, we're going to assign them to the weight room, other spots in the area to open the weight room up for students and faculty, have yoga for teachers and students, have different mindfulness activities, just as a way to relieve the stress. We thought that was a better use of their time. It's going to help everybody at that time of year. We know how stressful things get for students and teachers, so we're going to do that. We'll start that in the high school and hopefully expand that to other buildings as we go along and see success with this. The only thing about the parts of the room, because the gym is going to be a little busy at that time, but we'll work it out. And then just the brain breaks, just stop on, just to mention that. About a year and a half ago, through the Wellness Committee, we put a survey out to teachers about the use of brain breaks. And what we got a lot of feedback of people not sure how to do them, where to go to find brain breaks, exactly how to incorporate them into their class. And what we did from the data we got was we sent out sites, we sent out different places where you can find brain breaks, sent out videos of classes being involved in brain breaks. And excuse me, since in the last year, support from the administration, the entire administration has helped us to clear the way for teachers to do that. The principals are bought in, and now you see a huge difference in the use of brain breaks throughout the districts K through 12. We're hoping that by the end of this year to do another survey to see how we progressed from about a year ago until now.
And the slide on the right is really more kind of teacher-driven in terms of teachers utilizing SEL strategies, the brain breaks that Don just talked about. We have an example of that in the next slide. Flexible seating, mindfulness, which we have a slide about, which I'll expand on, and then movement. On Superintendent's Conference Day, Dr. Zuglionis and Dr. Jerizo had a great idea to start PD innovation teams, and we did short tasting for the teachers, and they rotated between different stations, we'll call them, but workshops really to learn about different initiatives that are in place. And the ones that you see here, mindfulness, movement, brain and behavior, teaching SEL through play, mindful gym, mood and music, incorporating SEL into the classroom, are some of the more popular ones that teachers chose. So you can see really where the teachers in the district heads are too, in terms of what they're thinking about. We had over 60 teachers sign up for the mindfulness team, which is fantastic. I'm going to expand on that in a second, but that was really a nice thing to see. Yeah, so this is an example of a brain break at the middle school.
We're ready. 2, 1, 2. 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. 2, 1, 2, girls.
1, 2.
Okay, so what is it that we just looked at, right? So brain breaks are planned learning activities that mobilize different networks of the brain. So if we ask students to sit and just learn all day long and not take a break, it's like I wouldn't run for 12 hours. That wouldn't be productive. So brain breaks are times where they can kind of stop, take a break, almost like the meta moment earlier that we talked about, and allow different regions of the brain to work, and allow regions that are blocked by stress or high intensity to recharge and return to a calm state. Research shows that it helps to foster optimal mood, attention, and memory. So this is just one example. It can be very different. It can be more of a calmer break. It could be a physical activity. Like Don said, the teacher's really into it, and Rob Dennis and I and some of the other principals have discussed bringing training for that. And I think it's a really exciting initiative to be in place, and it's nice to see teachers using it. Coincidentally, that was, I think, 2 days after our PD innovation team when that happened. So It's nice to see that Superintendent's Conference Day was meaningful to teachers too. Okay, mindfulness. So as I mentioned earlier, we had a tasting on this, and we had, Dr. Zubonis would have the numbers, but we had over 60, I think, teachers sign up for it. And how that worked is I ran the tasting with Simone Kurnishi. Simone is a trained mindfulness teacher. She did professional development in her old school for it. We gave them just a little introduction as to what mindfulness is and put them through a short meditation, and then they came back and chose our station. And then they broke off into different groups, and they chose, so some of the phys ed teachers are doing mindful gym, some of the teachers were looking at restorative justice, some of the elementary teachers got together and were just discussing how to implement it in their classroom. And it's really a nice initiative, and it was really K through 12. I had a physics teacher stop me in the hall 2 days after in the high school that said, you know, Dan, that was so great. I got so many ideas. We gave them a lot of resources through Google Drive. And he started doing gratitude circles during extended third period with his physics class. And I had a middle school art teacher stop me in the hallway and said, Dan, my class is always crazy, and I realized it's because they had lunch before, and I had them do just 5 minutes of mindful doodling, and I noticed that they were calm. And she said, then I extended it to 10 minutes, and it's really been helpful. So just having that time to kind of refocus and recenter will make the day more productive. And that's really the message that Simone and I try to relay to the teachers, is you may be giving up instruction time briefly, but you're going to get it back tenfold when the students are calmer and more focused on what they're doing. Some other mindfulness initiatives, some of the elementary social workers use the Mind Up curriculum. The middle school counselors are using the Mind Up curriculum. The plan is to have them do 4 lessons this year. They did 4 lessons last year. Mindfulness PD Innovation Team I talked about. Simone Kurnishi, Chris Zubonis, myself, Don, are working on a plan for her to push into every phys ed class in the high school. We'd like to do it prior to midterms to teach them breathing techniques to help them on their exams. They may need to be spread out a little bit, kind of short on time with that, but there is a plan for that to happen, which I think would be fantastic for every high school student to experience mindfulness in some ways. And then we have teachers, we have 5 teachers tomorrow actually, K through 12, a couple elementary, a couple middle school, and I think 2 high school, attending Integrating Mindfulness in the Classroom through BOCES, which is great. There's another one in January that more teachers are going to. We have teachers signing up for Mindful Schools classes. So it's really a great initiative that's happening here, and it was nice to see through that innovation team the excitement that teachers have for it. And then you can see how the quote on the right, which I'm not going to read, you can read it on the screen, ties into the meta moment before of pausing before you make a decision and then reacting. And then you can hear me talk about mindfulness all you want, but we have 2 students from Simone's dance class who are just going to give their thoughts.
I think meditation is a really great way to start every day, and it kind of just like sets the tone, and it can help with a number of things from like anxiety to just needing to relax and decompress. I also use it at night before I go to sleep as well, so I think it's very useful.
I think meditation is extremely important, especially in schools and classrooms where we don't do it as much, but we really need it to de-stress and relax throughout the day.
Okay, so you can see how students are responding to it, and that's why I think it's great that we're coming up with a plan for everybody to be exposed to it at the high school level. Okay, so transitioning now from all the great things that we're doing to the vaping conversation. The district recognizes that vaping is a national issue, but we do have a plan for it, and we do feel that we've been addressing it through programming, through district initiatives. 2 years ago, the Bach Harrison was given 25% of the students reported using e-cigarettes in their lifetime, 21% reported using e-cigarettes in the last 30 days. You can tell how far the vaping issue has come just from the language that was used on the Bach Harrison 2 years ago. E-cigarettes is not the language that's going to be used on when we do the Bach Harrison again in January. They have, I think, about 10 questions specifically just on vaping and Juuls and and using that language. So again, you can see how far it's come over the last 2 years, unfortunately. Some other district initiatives that are in place. District is researching vape detectors, looking into FlySense 2, and instituting those into the buildings, into the middle school, high school, potentially for next year. We've done professional development for staff on vaping. Albert Cousins and Kevin Curtis last year brought all the vape cartridges that they had confiscated throughout the year last year and showed the teachers what they were and educated them on what to look out for. We're constantly sending out the new cartridges that may be surfacing and what they might look like to staff, and that professional development will continue and expand for this year coming up. One thing that Riesenberg and myself are researching is the Teen Intervene curriculum, which I'm planning on putting into my budget for next year. It's a 3-part curriculum that would add consistency when a student is caught using not just vapes, but any sort of substance that would add consistency to when that happens. And the lessons really are about kind of counseling and moving forward and education. So we had Adam Birkenstock came, he's the clinical director at LICAD, and spoke to our 4th and 5th graders. I was at the presentation. He did a really, really nice job. I was a little concerned as to how, we didn't do that in elementary school at Harris, and it was very developmentally appropriate. He spoke to students on their level. It was really a nice presentation. He gave one example that ties into really this whole presentation. I kind of stole his idea for the theme of kind of building a strong foundation. He put up a picture of a rickety house, and he asked the students, he said, if a storm comes, what do you think will happen in this house? He said, it's going to get knocked down. Put up the picture of a brick house, said, if a storm comes, what do you think will happen? Oh, it'll be fine. And he talked about that in terms of coping skills and really building that foundation of having a toolbox of emotional resources that you can use, or people to reach out to, or building a strong network of people around you. And it was really great, and I thought it really stuck with the students. Another thing from that presentation that jumped out at me, unfortunately, was he asked how many students here know someone who vapes, and I'd say probably 80–90%, like maybe everybody, raised their hand, which for 4th and 5th graders is a little concerning. But that's why we're talking about it, that's why we're here. Which brings me to Ty Sells came and gave a presentation to every high school student. He had a parent night as well. And just some consistency between the two presentations was the emphasis on prevention can't be about scaring students, right? And it has to be about equipping students with the tools to make positive decisions and forming connections with students. So that's why all the programs that I showed earlier, a lot of them are kind of unifying experiences between teachers and students and counselors and staff members. And that's really where the emphasis should be, and that's what we're trying to do. Ty also talked a lot about modeling behavior. He gave an example which I thought was really nice. If you'll bear with me, if everybody will just do this with your hands, if you don't mind. All right, and then put it on your chin. Yeah, so half of you, this is a smart group, half of you put it on your chin, half of you put it on the cheek, right? And he used that for modeling behavior, right? He said, I'm telling you to put it on your chin, and had everybody put it on the cheek. So, but it was a good example, and it goes back to that, the 4th and 5th graders who everybody knows someone who vapes, that's modeling behavior. So it was really important, I thought, for the parents to hear that. Kind of not, do as they do, not as I say, right? Then we've had other presentations. Larry Glenn's came, Don set that up and spoke to every, I think, fall athlete, right? That was a really meaningful presentation. Our relationship with CASA is stronger than ever. They're running great CASA coffee programs. They brought Ty Sells in, which is fantastic. Red Ribbon Week was a K through 12 program. Every elementary school had theme days and did projects, which you'll see in a second. At the high school level, peer leaders pushed into classrooms to address common myths. Connected with that, I think this was the sheet, I think this was sent to you in terms of what they talked about, which was really great. And then CASA ran some other competitions during Red Ribbon Week. Here's an example of some of the student work that was produced. It included artwork, poetry, essays, multimedia, and then they sponsored a scholarship for the winners of this contest. The clubs and sports teams created messages which are hung outside the counseling office, and then there was a pro-social event put together that students attended. Here's an example of just elementary student work. There is one from Glen Head. I wasn't able to get my hands on it, but these are, so all the elementary schools did address Red Ribbon Week. The Social Emotional Learning Committee has met 3 times already and is really working to try to come up with a plan for Dr. Giarrizzo for, by January, we're hoping, for budget concerns. We've looked at many programs. Mindfulness has been a big part of our discussions in terms of moving that initiative forward, K through 12. Ruler is a program we looked at. We looked at Mindful Schools. We're having teachers go to a responsive classroom training. We went to Alliance Quest training. We looked at Second Step. We looked at the Bopton Life Skills training, which is a prevention program. And we're really excited about the work that's happening on that committee. Other upcoming counseling and wellness events here. Raising a Beautiful Child is for parents through the Hanks Foundation, which connects to Beautiful Me and the Hero in Me program that we're going to implement. Don't Press Send is a social media presentation. The Parent Mental Health Nights I talked about. I've spoken to Laura Campbell from the Long Island Crisis Center, who's phenomenal about coming in and doing a program for parents. Challenge Day at the middle school, transition programs, potential redesign of spaces. Everyone Cares Day is happening at the middle school next Tuesday, which is all about service learning and giving back. And some of the middle school students are going to go down to the elementary school and be an assistant teacher for the day. And again, it's all these unifying experiences to get students connected to the school and connected to the community. And then Choices and Consequences will happen in the spring at the high school. So just some areas of focus. As I said earlier, coming into the district, it's amazing everything that's going on here, but we do have some things that we continue to work on. So systems evaluation, really looking into the K through 12 communication practices and ways that we can maybe improve upon some of those, I think especially from a mental health standpoint. The effectiveness of extended play in elementary school, which I mentioned earlier, looking into how that worked from the principals and the staff. Looking into the crisis response plans that are in the district and improvements we could make there. And then really SEL and wellness to influence the future construction projects that are happening. I know there's discussion of a mindfulness room in the middle school and some things like that to really help our students. K through 12 alignment, Don mentioned earlier in terms of the health curriculum, really trying to align K through 12 everything that's happening. Same in terms of counseling. A major goal of the SEL committee is to align the elementary schools as step 1 in terms of the SEL programs. Rulers in place in Glenwood Landing, and then Glen Head and Seacliff, there's things happening, but it's not unified, and that would be really the goal, to try to move that forward with a long-term goal of having a K through 12 SEL model. Professional development, as I talked about earlier, in terms of vaping, but also in terms of at-risk students and mental health and what that might look like and how teachers can respond to that. And then parent education, as I mentioned, in terms of the wellness nights, social media prevention, and then researching programs that can help our students, continuing our relationships with outside providers and with CASA and with the parent organizations. That I think is really, really important. Yeah.
Just to step back to the vaping for a second, we use the Too Good for Drugs health curriculum and incorporates with our curriculum, and that was also modified this year to include e-cigarettes and vaping for the first time. And what we do now is we combine that topic with nicotine, marijuana, cigarettes, drugs, so that it's everything leads down to one point, and that's what provides combined, so that we can take that and look across and see that. With the increase in vaping, you're going to see the increase in cigarette smoking, and it can lead to increase in drug use. So that's what we combine that, so that kids can learn about the perils of getting involved in those things. So for this year, this short period of time, we're coming at this in 3 different ways. The change in our curriculum for Too Good for Drugs. We've had a presentation here at the high school for every student on vaping. Dan is getting together with the middle school administration to form one for the middle school. The 4th and 5th graders have been in one in the elementary schools, and we're also working to have bring in speakers to our health classes to help to reinforce what we're teaching every day. So that's the three-pronged attack we're going at right now. And as we get information, as we get numbers back from the Bach Harrison this spring, we'll be able to re-examine and see other ways that we have to get to that.
All right, questions?
Trustee?
Thank you for the presentation. Can you just tell me what the contact time with his wellness teacher and the counseling person?
So from a counseling perspective, Mr. Pratt is pushing it for 10 lessons this year, but the Beautiful Me program was all 4th and 5th grade. Glendale Landing will be all 4th and 5th grade in Seacliff and Glen Head. And you know, having her, that's the council, but having her split between 3 buildings does kind of complicate kind of individual counseling and things like that.
Okay, and the wellness teacher is,
Well, it's also about 10 lessons per class.
does that happen in physical education
No, it
classes?
doesn't. It happens in the classroom, pushing to the classroom.
So pushing to the classroom.
Yes.
Okay. The curriculums that you were talking about developing, does the state give you kind of,
The state will give us the benchmarks to use, and everything is based on the benchmarks, and then we'll take it from there and write the curriculum.
okay. This is obviously a very impressive list of things that you're doing. I think it would be helpful to people's understanding, your efforts, and the whole package, to delineate the things that are happening on for a one-shot deal, as opposed to things that there's any repetition in the curriculum, whether that's 10 classes, 15 classes, whatever it is, just to separate those out a little bit. Because I think that we probably will agree that anytime you're immersed in something on an ongoing basis, the behavior is going to, much more chance of. But just in terms of understanding where we're at, is to take these lists, which again are very impressive, just to see where we are in terms of everyday things. As I looked at them, it seemed like those really outweighed the things that were there for the long term, or took any chunk of time for presentation. And the other thing that I would suggest is that your social emotional learning committee is looking at a lot of new programs. There are real benchmarks in terms of evidence-based programs that are effective. So I'm hoping that at minimal, any program that you're looking at, you would consider those things that have been deemed effective for years.
Absolutely, yeah. We're using the CASEL guide to SEL. Every program we're looking at is CASEL approved. We came up with a worksheet through the committee in terms of what we're looking for in a program, and they're all evidence-based and research-based.
Some more than others, so that's just been
Yeah.
great job. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. It's very comprehensive. I'm very happy to see that finally North Shore, over the years, as long as I've been a parent in it, we've kind of done the social, emotional, wellness piece very piecemeal. Kind of just happenstance. The crisis is occurring in a particular school. One principal is doing this, and another principal doing that. So I'm happy that state's directing full K-12 comprehensive curriculum, and we're jumping on this now and hopefully dedicating. It seems like we're dedicating a lot of resources and administrative support behind it. So I'm encouraged, and I'm very hopeful. And I jumped into a little research on Ruler and MindUp, and MindUp is part of Goldie Hawn's Foundation. I saw that as part of it's a CASEL group, research-based. Ruler is out of Yale. Very, very good outcomes in there. So I'm hoping that this will reflect well for us. But again, I'm hoping to see some longitudinal dedication to this, and I agree with Joanna. If this becomes part of our regular curriculum, that the kids are learning every single year, scaffolded up the line, and then we have common language across the district, so when all the kids come together in the middle school, they all learn the same coping, resilience skills across the board. And then we do have, obviously, floating professionals, wellness, guidance, the counselors throughout the three buildings. So should have the same common language as their own.
And what's nice about Hulu is it's more of an approach where it's kind of embeds the culture, and then things like mindfulness can be more stressed by the curriculum that we have through counseling. So like it'd be a nice.
It's little pieces of CBT for young people, when your kids have insight and they can reflect on their own emotions and how they're feeling about a situation, and how to react over time. So thank you for this work.
Sorry, Ben.
So I'm interested in bullying, which was sort of just touched on very briefly in your presentation. And I should backtrack and thank you for all your hard work. Yeah, welcome to the district. But I think the middle school is a particularly tough place for bullying. I think the E3 sort of model class gotten a little tired. And I want to know what we are doing affirmatively to address the incidents of bullying, in particular at the middle school. Are the teachers and the Title IX officers probably trained in reporting every incident of bullying that should be reported? And what steps are being taken against the bully in terms of education?
Sure. Being new to the district and not being in middle school every day, some of those are more questions for the principal and assistant principal, but I'm happy to, I think the E3 squads themselves, research shows that those small periods where they have, so the E3 squads meet twice a week,
Right.
and they're small groups where teachers kind of get to know students. And that model has shown to be effective because the counselors can do, like on Unity Day, when they talk about being an upstander and they talk about bullying, those are areas where that can happen. I'm happy to speak to Rob Dennis and Brendan Nelson about the disciplinary measures and how those are handled. So I'm sorry, I don't know if I can answer that
Okay. Well, yeah.
question because I'm not involved in those disciplinary situations.
Right. It's not just discipline, it's, one of the slides that you showed, you were talking about where there's behavior, or feeling there's a need,
Sure.
right? So are we addressing the underlying issues that are causing the bullying, and in particular in terms of the bullying? It's not really so much what discipline is being taken against the bully, but what are we doing to find out what's causing the behavior and to rectify that behavior.
Right,
And I'm not talking about the E3 squads in particular as being tarred. I think students who've had siblings who are older, they sort of now at this point, make fun of the E3 phraseology, and maybe we can come up with something a little newer, just a thought.
Sure.
On that, and I'd be interested in particular, because that's such a rough period of time, like whoever raised their hand and says, gee, I'd like to go back to middle school, no one, right?
Yeah.
So I think that would be, an interesting area to look at and to get more information.
Yeah, I know Mr. Nelson, the assistant principal, just went to a restorative justice conference for 3 days in Texas, and restorative justice is all about a different way to look at discipline, and it gets more at, I think, what you're saying in terms of dealing with why the person might be bullying instead of just putting them in a room or suspending them, kind of working towards counseling and
Right, the suspending them really
focusing
gives
more.
them what they want, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. So,
It's like rewarding,
but I
right?
think that is a direction that we're looking to move towards. So.
And the other thing at the middle school is that Challenge Day. I think the information that went out last year about it to the parents was not done in a timely manner, and I don't know, I think some parents were taken by surprise as to what the Challenge Day entailed. That's just a note for you and for, the middle school administration, that the communication on that should come early and be precise in terms of what's entailed.
Yeah, and that's something we noted last year too.
Yeah.
Let's try, does anyone we haven't heard from have a question still?
We've never seen it.
What? I'll come back to you.
Thank you for the presentation. With the equity study before, we were kind of beating the drum about student connection to adults in the building, so the trusted adult exit ticket is really, I appreciate hearing a specific thing that you're doing and hoping that can continue to expand and not just K through 5, but also beyond. And to note those things, a couple of questions I had. You mentioned teaching students to deal with stress. Stress is, of course, a part of life for students and beyond, giving them tools at a young age to handle that. But I wonder if there's also an opportunity to recognize points where we as a district may be inappropriately causing some of that stress. Think about kids with workloads, kids who are fighting to take as many difficult courses as they possibly can because of some perception, real or not, that's going to be in their advantage, or maybe along the way it's counterproductive. So I like the idea of teaching kids to manage stress as opposed to pretending it doesn't exist or avoid it, or pretending the stressful situations aren't actually what they are. But I want to also, it's important for us as a board and for the administration to get feedback from your on-the-ground experience with these kids to understand where we're putting them in situations that maybe it's not so appropriate.
Sure. Yeah, I think some of that goes into kind of how time is being used, and I know at the high school they're looking at block scheduling as to whether that would help with some of this, because it would limit the number of classes students can take during the day. I know as a counseling department, the message that we send is quality over quantity, and really trying to advise students not to overdo it, and to say to them, a college isn't going to appreciate your transcript if you take 9 classes but you don't do well in them because you're stressed or it affects your attendance because you have anxiety or something. And so that message is being sent. It's a conversation that I've already had about our 8th grade night. It is the kind of, high school is more of a marathon than a sprint. You don't need to jump into every honors class in 9th grade, because research shows that 9th grade, in terms of grades, is usually the student's worst year. So if you can get into 9th grade, do well, and then progress forward and maybe challenge yourself later on, I think that's a better way to go. For some students, it's different for every student, but absolutely that's something. And on the SEL committee, those are things that we've talked about, that the parents have advocated for. We do have parents on the committee, and they've talked about their students being stressed, and as a district looking into that, and I think it's important.
On the vaping issue, so I have a question I don't think you know the answer to, but, and it's a simple one. Why, in a world where cigarette smoking seems to be ebbing, why are our kids vaping? Do we know that as a district? Do we know that as a society?
Well, I think that they look at it and they don't see the effects. They don't think there's nicotine in it. It's kind of, they don't see the long-term effect. Kids don't see the long-term effect of it. And they don't think that they're going to be addicted to nicotine if they vape, which is, not true. That's why it's important for us to educate them and go across the board and say how addictive it is, just like cigarettes, just like marijuana, just like anything else.
Those are the reasons why maybe they're not scared of it. But why choose to do it? Is it seen as cool?
Is it peer pressure? Yeah. Any kind of peer pressure.
So the same kind of factors that led kids to smoke back when we were younger. And
Yes. Yeah, and if you look at the marketing, it was marketed similar to how cigarettes were marketed when we were younger.
We spent some time talking about this in we were preparing. We had a meeting with social workers and folks. One of the aims that we want to really work towards, right, is address the issue of vaping, but also address the causes for why kids vape, right? Because when vaping becomes something else, and it will, right? It's the same skills that we want kids to have, right? So right now, that's the primary issue. When I was in high school, it was cigarette smoking, right? So in likely 20, 30 years, it will be something, that might be something else. But I think there's a lot of social peer pressure around this, and to Dan's point from earlier, when we met with the 5th and 5th graders, it really was jaw-dropping when they asked the question, how many of you know someone who vapes, right? And it was almost everybody in the 4th and 5th grade that they're in. So,
yeah, I think those of us who have kids who either are or have recently been 4th and 5th graders,
yes,
not surprised.
Yeah.
At that. And I asked that question first because understanding the why is the number one thing we can do to help these kids to try to avert that before it happens. That said, my second question is much more mundane, but very important, which is the vaping detection systems that we've been talking about. I don't want us to get into it now, but I would like to see some report about specifically what we're looking into, the data behind the effectiveness. I know we brought this up previously, the pop unit felt that they were not ready for prime time. The devices weren't ready for prime time yet, so that was not a direction in which to go. But certainly, if we look at the cigarettes as the model, when they became really expensive and when it became, you couldn't, when we were younger, $2 for a pack, you could smoke on the Long Island Railroad and in bar and everywhere. And those things all became verboten, and suddenly people just chose not to be smoking anymore. So
Buy them in the vending machine.
yeah, the vending, exactly. I went to high school not that long ago, and there was a smoking courtyard in the building for kids to be able to smoke in the building. So my point is that stopping kids from smoking in our bathrooms is not going to solve the problem, but it does make it harder, and it will result in less kids putting it in their mouths at certain times of day. So I would like to see the concrete data and research behind it.
So we have requests for proposals. So we've identified 6 bathrooms in middle school, 6 bathrooms in the high school. We are currently looking at 2 systems. One is called Halo Smart Sensor, and the other is FlySense Generation 2. We have all the tech specifications, we have the installation specifications. What I'm doing now is I asked for their client lists, so we can do calling around to some schools and find out in real time. I saw one came in, John beginning this week. So we'll start those calls this week or next, and then we'll start the installation of the pilot, and then bring back the data to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks again.
Sure.
Trustees, we haven't heard from Trustee Commander, did you have a follow-up?
Not a question for these gentlemen, but more for Peter and Chris. Just an emphasis on the professional development piece of this, because that's really the first line of defense, and if we can get our teachers recognizing some of the issues that are going on, it puts us so further down the road. So.
I have a couple of questions myself, and thank you for the presentation. It's just a tremendous amount of information. We greatly appreciate it. It's obviously important concern in our district. With the discussion on vaping, we know vaping was engineered to be highly addictive given the levels of nicotine that are in the cartridges. When we find kids that are vaping at school, there's a good chance that they are addicted. They can't just choose to quit. How do we deal with that when we find someone?
I think getting them help is number one in terms of them recognizing that it might be an issue for them. I know our social worker, Mr. Wiesberg, is usually involved. If a student is caught, they will meet with her. I mentioned the Teen Intervened curriculum. I think will help bring some structure to that, where it's a 3-part, not lessons, because it's more counseling sessions, but it would be consistent for everyone. Again, I'm not necessarily involved in all the disciplinary situations, but I think the restorative justice piece of really kind of looking at the problem and why they're doing it, to Mr. Lovemar's question, is really important, and adding that counseling piece and also making recommendations to outside therapists or clinicians or whatever it might be, I think is really important. And that does happen sometimes on the parents' end. There may not be follow through, but those recommendations are made. And then we will continue the counseling in schools between the school counselor and the social worker.
We talked about various pieces, and we talked about sort of stress and anxiety, but I don't know that we talked specifically as much about depression, which I think this is the kind of school we can absolutely expect to see some of that in as well. Is there something in here that I overlooked where we're addressing that piece, particularly depression in the high school population?
I think in terms of again, working towards counseling and recommending outside providers and working with the parents, I think is really important. Sometimes it's mislabeled or it's not labeled as what it should be. I hate even using the term labeled, but kind of recognizing what the situation is. And that's where I'm working on scheduling the parent wellness nights, because our mental health nights, it's important for parents to learn what that might look like. Laura Campbell from Long Island Crisis Center spoke every year at Harris to our parents. She does an amazing job educating them. And even some of what we talked about in our middle school wellness night was typical versus atypical behavior. And if a parent sees it every day, they may think it's typical, but it's not. And so it's important to educate them on that, to get the students help before it may get to a depressive state. If we do have someone who's in that position, they will be working with the school counselor, with the social worker, with the psychologist if necessary, and try to get them help and make sure that they know all the options that are available to them. Like, the goal should be to catch that before it gets to that point, but that doesn't always happen, as we know. But really working with the parents on trying to get the student help, I think is number one with that. And that may be in school, maybe out of school, maybe a combination of the two, but that's really going to look different for every student. But going back to kind of what we talked about in terms of ruler and identifying emotions, like, if we can get students to identify what they're feeling before it gets to that point, and I think that would be the goal for the situation.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add on one thing to that, and that is Chris Marino and I are starting to work with the RTI committee, the Response to Intervention Committee, and in our discussions about planning, we talked about, results at the elementary level over the last 5-10 years. We've seen more and more cases come to the ISTs, the instructional support teams, child support teams, each building calls it something different, that were more social, emotional, mental health in nature. And so in terms of the pre-identifying the proactive way and offering a tiered level of supports, that would definitely be a part of that RTI spectrum of services and interventions and follow-up.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in terms of professional development too, I think it's important for the teachers to recognize typical versus atypical behavior and how to help students move in that direction. And to Mr. Lovemar's point about just students that are so anxious, sometimes teachers get caught up in their class and their world and maybe not view everything else that's going on. And as counselors and social workers, that's kind of our role to help them see the bigger picture, and the students may have things going on that they may not be aware of.
And to that point too, I do think it's important for us not to talk just about how we're going to fix or solve how kids are feeling, but to really look at the extent to which our schools are contributing to how our students are feeling, structurally, like what the school day is like, what the course load is like, what the expectations are, what the homework level is, how much recess there is. I mean, I think it is fully K-12 that we have these kids for a huge chunk of their day and hence their lives. And if there is a wellness problem, you're clearly playing a role in that, and we need to look at it structurally on the front end and not just the response to it. I think that has to be integral to what we're doing.
And I think that's a very interesting point, Sarah. And when you're talking about during the high-stress periods, having the phys ed teachers doing those classes, that should be something year-round. I know at the university levels, the university where my son goes does increase the availability of yoga classes and things of that nature during exam period. Unfortunately, during exam period is a period where they feel like they have the least amount of time doing it. So if you did some fun type cardio classes or yoga classes to offer them in small groups throughout the day, throughout the year, when kids could try those classes and then they know that, okay, if I do cardio, even though it's terrible getting out of bed in the morning, or yoga, that I feel better as soon as I do that, right? And you put them in that habit, then they'll find the time to take advantage of that during the exam period. They're not all of a sudden going to say, oh gee, I've got 25 exams, let me go do yoga. I mean, it's just kind of counterintuitive, you know? They need to have it
time for a fact that it's helpful, and then they can.
Right, then they will avail themselves of those additional opportunities.
So we have a parent on the SEL committee whose daughter is in Simone's dance class who said like the daughter was complaining about having to wake up, and then it's her favorite class. She goes there, she loves the meditation, she sees the benefit in it, but it's a 0 period, so she has to be at school early. But
I had a son that would have been there for 0 period had you offered it,
But to your point, yeah.
yeah, right? So she complained, but now this is part of her life,
Yep.
right?
We'll find out.
But sleep connects, sleep also, with the 0 period, sleep also connects with.
Right. Yeah.
The 0 period for this was, we were trying like
This
mad
was
to
right.
get the dance program.
No
off the
question.
ground.
No
No,
question. This was
but
a
there may
specific-
be other opportunities, like during their lunch periods, right?
Yeah, that's
Right.
having Simone pushing to every phys ed class.
I know when you do
This
the
idea.
lifestyles class, it includes, because my son took those, it includes a yoga segment, but maybe that should be in other types of classes as well. I mean, they can't hurt any athlete to stretch, right?
So perhaps I'm sorry.
It's really good. I think it circles back to exactly what we're talking about here, which is that this is not a clarinet, where you spend a party day playing clarinet. Wellness is a wash over our entire program, and that's the goal of what we've been talking about, to develop curricula, to have it be K through 12, to have it be reflected everywhere in the way that they relate to each other, in the way that they exercise, in the way that they are mindful of their own emotional states. So it's not segmented, it's through everything. So I like that we're moving in that direction. That is the way we've been looking for it to go.
Well, the year-long phys ed class that students can take with wellness, that's made a big difference in the way people, use phys ed and what they do in phys ed.
Yeah, but not everyone takes that,
No, not
that's my
everyone.
point. I mean, I had kids who did that, but not everyone does it. So you might want to integrate some of the things from wellness in your other phys ed classes, and then offer maybe some of those, classes like with Jan Stanziata or with Michelle Cochran or some of the other phys ed teachers, and in other periods.
So we could, what we'll do is, I love that you're asking us to look at this. This is really a terrific task. So we'll get together, we'll talk through what the options are, and I love being able to provide this kind of support for kids. Throughout the day, we'll figure out how and where and all that stuff, and then we'll bring it back to you.
And I think, I just want to add one piece. You talked about transition periods from, at the student span here, for sure. So from 5 to 6, 8 to 9. And I think we need to look at 12 to college or 12 to the real world as well, and how we can integrate some of those learning into our kids who are ready to launch for those issues that they're going to most likely experience when they get into their post-secondary world.
Yeah, I coordinated a senior send-off program. Laura Campbell actually came in to present to the parents and talk to students about what mental health might look like in college and how to find resources. We had a healthy versus unhealthy relationships presentation, which we had earlier this year. PSAT Day wasn't best attended, but I love that Karen come back and talk to our students about what that looks like. And then we had a transition person from the Delphi conference talk to students. The students cycled through the 3 different workshops that day. We thought it was really meaningful.
So I think my final thought is just, so how are we going to know if we've really made significant progress here?
That's a tough question. I think, so there's kind of the systemic things that we could look at, right? So if we were able to align the elementary schools in terms of an SEL approach or a curriculum, I think is really important. I think if we're able to see a difference in students in terms of them seeking out help more, which our social worker at the high school did say she's noticed already, that the students seem more willing to come down even after Red Ribbon Week. She said she had more students in her office that next week than she had prior. So I think those are ways to it's hard to put like a pin in kind of exactly if it's working, but I think with all the initiatives that are in place and everything that we're doing, I think we can move in the right direction. And we've talked about mental health screenings. And, you know, those can be valuable if the students are honest, but if you're gonna do something like that, you also have to be prepared for the answers and have to, like, we'd have to bring in outside clinicians and be ready to, in real time, assess students if they're gonna say that they're suicidal or something like that. So that there's pros and cons to it. But it's, you know, mental health in general, it's hard to put data to or to show right away. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but.
Absolutely.
I want to say a few years ago, and you may remember this, when Albert was doing some numbers gathering on absences, significant absences in this high school around major assignment times, exam times, and also within that, you might see some school refusal in the younger grades. I wonder if we're still maintaining that data to indicate to us. And I know that I think Albert said it was getting better. A lot of students would come to school, you know, maybe they had 3 exams, but one day they could only manage to get studying for one day, and then they would call out sick the rest of the day, or vice versa, they'd come in late. So I'm wondering if we have some secondary data on that from the secondary principal, because that might indicate some levels of stress that we're not recognizing.
Well, that we're not addressing how we're assigning the
Right.
work and the test days,
Which
which is a
we discuss all the time.
continuing problem that we've discussed multiple times.
So institutionally, that's where we can look.
It's a big problem.
Yes. Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, ma'am.
We are going to move next to comments from the public. If anyone wants to address the board, you're welcome to come to the podium and give us your name and town of residence, and we are happy to hear from you. The floor is yours. Okay, we're going to close public comment. We will move on to our business items. Trustees dispense such action on meeting that is personnel. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All in favor? Thank you. Action item C is the appointment of our latest LAC member, Michael DeSantis. Do I have a motion? Motion. And I think there was a second. All in favor? Thank you. D, approval of the resolution to authorize the destruction of ballots from the last election. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor? E, authorization to amend the 1920 budget and appropriate monies from the workers' compensation reserve. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second. Questions? All in favor? Action F is the agreement between North Shore and Bozeman Science. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second. Questions?
I've got some questions.
Yes, please.
Noticing that it's March 30th and 31st are those school days that says, do I have the right on?
Yes, you do.
So it's a professional development workshop on March 30th and 31st from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So and this is for science teachers?
Yes.
And so is it the entire science department that is receiving the training?
I can find out for you, sure.
I'm just wondering what students are doing on those days.
I can find out for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Christine.
They are school days, though.
Yeah, it's Steve Mitchell, secondary science, but we'll find out the rotation of coverage.
Other questions? I'm assuming we're ready to vote. All in favor? Thank you. Action G is the approval of special education service contracts with other districts where there are priority students in non-public schools. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And I have a second. Questions? All in favor? Action H is the approval of the piano accompanist. Motion?
Motion.
And a second? Questions? All in favor? Thank you. I is to dispose of inventory. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second? Questions? All in favor? Thank you. J is the much anticipated approval of the school calendar for next year. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
People don't have any questions. A second? Questions? I did actually have a question on the school. I have a sort of question. The number of districts surrounding us that have added days to their school calendars in recognition of holidays that various parts of their community are recognizing is growing. I think today, when I last looked at it, it's almost a dozen districts around us that have added, not necessarily exactly the same days, but different days to the calendar. Not for this calendar that we're approving, but over the course of next year, is there a way to look at or put together or do some way to start to think about what kind of calendar would really work best for our families here? Because we've been having a lot of very interesting conversations recently about English's new language populations, about families that need buddies, about the number of families where a different language is spoken at home, and while not necessarily directly related, there is an increasing diversity in our district that we should really give some thought to.
We'll be in school to July 4th. We don't have to celebrate Independence Day.
When I did look at the building calendar, there were several holidays that I looked at in particular. I looked at Diwali, I looked at the Lunar New Year, I looked at the Eid al-Fitr and the two Eids. With the exception, I think, of Diwali, maybe, most of these holidays fall on the weekends this year.
This year, right, they
Worked out
don't
really-
actually impact
Yeah,
the week.
it
So
actually worked
we
out
have
really
some
nicely this
time.
year. Yeah, but I did look at them to as an eye, because it has come up to me from parents, from some faculty members, asking me to look at this, and I said that I would. And so to the extent that I needed to this year, I probably would have needed people to have a look at this. And then I consulted with the quadrant, the districts in our quadrant, 10 of us. And so I think this year, we kept the traditional holidays in place, and next year we'll take a look again and to the extent that there are ways to accommodate holidays. I have no issue.
Well, we could always also amend policies that, I mean, I think it's mentioned somewhere in our policies, but maybe we could post it. If we don't have sufficient population or we can't accommodate them on the holiday, then it's an excused absence. It
I
should
think
be
we
in the
absolutely
policy. I think it's somewhere in our policy. I don't know what that language looks like, if it's reflective of the present population, but it's somewhere embedded in our policy manual, I believe. And then for faculty, what we used to do when I worked in a large company was we had floating holidays. So if you were Jewish, you took off Rosh Hashanah. If you were Christian, you took off Good Friday, so that you would have every year one floating holiday in addition to whatever vacation time you had.
And my company does something similar, and for students, I don't think there's any doubt that they can miss school for a holiday, but I think we're trying to move to a point where you don't necessarily have to be, you don't have to be different, you don't have to miss school when everybody else is attending, you don't, right?
I understand
Even
what
though
I'm
it's-
saying, that if we can't, you're not going to be able to accommodate everyone,
single person.
but we
So
can
you
make,
still
you
need
want
the
to need a policy, and you need to make it clear to students and faculty that there's no penalty.
Right, because you
If
can't
they-
get every single person, yes,
That was my point.
100%.
Not that one is in lieu of the other.
And you feel like, do you have a structure in that?
No.
Okay, terrific. We still need to vote on this year's
Yes, we
calendar.
do.
Any other questions? All in favor? So be it. Action K is the approval of the budget transfers. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Questions? All in favor? L is the acceptance of 2 sets of donations. We have an anonymous donor who's given us $9,520 to help pay for the middle school's trip to Washington, and the very generous middle school PTO, which is going to give us $1,500 to help with the Green Hill trip for the 6th graders.
So can I just jump in there? All right. Do you want to take the motion first?
Yes, actually, that would be better. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Questions or comments, including those from the superintendent?
So these monies are donated for students who are on free and reduced lunch and can't afford to go on a trip for one reason or another. And so every student who wanted to go to Green Hill or Washington DC is going. That doesn't mean that all of them are going. There are some that are staying back, but it is not because of financial constraints. So this is super generous and really appreciate it. It's not here tonight.
It's
but
extremely generous.
So generous. And I do want to thank Rob Dennis for the challenge. We talked about this in the beginning of the year, and I said we have to figure out a way to accommodate the students with financial needs that we delivered and then some. So,
Other questions? All in favor? Many thanks. M is the approval of the agreement between North Shore and Georgia River. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second? Any business?
Joy.
I did, thank you. Questions? All in favor? We move on to board committee reports. We definitely have some board committees. Do you have one?
Yeah, Lisa and I attended the Wellness Committee meeting.
Excellent. That means we can make Lisa do safety if you do wellness.
And it had a lot more representation on it this year than in the past, so I think more voice to that committee will be great. There was a question regarding policy updates, so maybe it was good enough to get the policy out to everybody. There was a recap of Red Ribbon Week activities, and the number of participants and the activities had clearly increased over this year's effort. We had a conversation regarding, first of all, we had the trainer join us, and that was a really very, very positive experience, particularly gave us some real life situations. We got into a discussion about the concussion management system, and he informed us that baseline test is given every 2 years. And we had kind of asked him why that wasn't happening per season or yearly. He thought it was a financial issue. But I think it's something certain that we should be looking into testing those kids, I believe seasonally, especially if they're on travel teams. Anything else, Lisa, that
I think we talked generally about education, pushing wellness education, but also comprehensive to what we just experienced tonight and all that information to make sure that the wellness committee is connected to the broader scope and outreach of our wellness activity. We don't want to work in a vacuum. So we talked about some overreach.
One of the things that came out of the meeting was that some of the material, the training that we're doing for our kids, specifically, in this case, we were talking about puberty, education has been farmed out to Northwell rather than being presented by our teachers. So I kind of didn't understand that. I don't think he was in a position to explain that or how that happened. So is that the or is that something?
For the 5th grade, I thought we'd always brought somebody
No,
else.
it used to be the teachers, when our kids were in school, it was the teachers.
For mine, it's always
5th grade
been
teachers.
outside. I know it's like it was.
Mine is part of internal.
And he kind of gave me the impression that this was going to be in a lot of different areas. That they were working with this Northwell team who was going to come in and do these types of programming for the kids. And we're just wondering that was happening. But it was a productive meeting, and I think that we didn't have any student reps last time, but I think everyone will be at the next meeting, looking forward to turning along and being very involved with the efforts. And as an afterthought, I think that the wellness committee should really sit down with the social emotional learning, at least have a conversation with Hank there.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
That seems like a nice idea, thank you.
I don't know, since I'm new to the committee, was there ever anybody from, I know there used to be a nutrition committee, or that might have been buildings?
Well,
specific?
there have been some building ones, there was
Yes.
absolutely a district one, but, we had some,
Gatorade controversy,
we
right?
had
Gatorade Gate.
in between, we had some significant, we had a significant personnel person who was out for an extended
Yes.
period of time, and, but I think absolutely the district nutrition committee can come back and can provide. Like, they met not extensively, they met quarterly, and they were nice.
I think what happened was.
Right, I'm trying to. Bring back nutrition. You want to do safety, health and safety?
Yes, we met this, safety committee met the other day, and it was really nice. We had some special guests in the form of 4 Nassau County police
I was going to say
officers.
half the precinct.
Now we have our nice reincarnated 6 precincts. Yeah, right. Did you send them? We were very well behaved. I know. I saw handcuffed, so I behaved. Yeah, so there were 3 POP officers and an additional officer who represented Homeland Security. And I know, John, I think they were incredibly informative. Some really, I mean, I think one of them should come every meeting because they have perspective of what's going on in, especially our quadrant at the very least, and what other schools are tackling at a high level. So in terms of security, keeping their schools safe. So they know what laws are out there. They know where, you should call us, don't rely upon yourselves, always reach out to us.
And they were very engaged and
Very engaged.
repeatedly offered their help in various ways.
Was there any thought given to having those POP officers do a presentation to parents? Because we had that several years ago. I would say maybe 2 or 3 years ago at the height of the opioid crisis.
They offered
And they were
every
very informative, and you had really a full high school auditorium for that.
No, they were very generous in offering any type of outreach to us, which I thought was very refreshing in this day and age. There's certain other organizations where they depend on grant monies to do these things, and it's starting to level off, but they must have it, and it seems like they're at the directorate of their police commissioner who has tasked them with this. And giving great hope. They're very professional, very articulate gentlemen who were there, and they offered help in probably every single thing that we were concerned about. They had, environmental perspectives on what's going on in the county. So can we invite them back again? I thought they were very productive part of it.
I think you always invite them.
Yeah.
You're invited to every meeting.
Yeah.
John Ahern reached out specifically
Excellent.
because he was new and just asked that they could come and they
Well, that
brought
was-
more than we expected.
Yeah, great coordination. Well, we
Because
stayed
they
within
all
a
needed
good
to
time
play their
frame.
sirens as they pulled up.
But you could
I
get
felt
them
very
for
safe.
the parents, like one
Yeah,
night
They did.
for the parents, and another night in the auditorium.
Yeah, we can talk, maybe at the next safety committee, we can talk about what that,
Might look like.
what that might look
They were very open to doing that.
Absolutely. And to come in and even speak with administration, curriculum, to speak to you organizationally and how.
like. They are terrific, I will tell you, they are terrific guys. The county just added the third top officer, the chief, Steve Kowski, who you met from Homeland Security, is always available to us. We communicate with them multiple times a week, and they will take our calls day and night. It's been a really terrific program.
Yeah, they had have some great data on what other schools are doing their incidents, and the way that, how that worked. We got a little demo on how that worked, and it was a great meeting. It was very good, so I'm looking forward to that. We reviewed, they're talking about drills, the drills we do. We're all on task for that, calendar for that.
Are we doing better?
Yes. Yes, much. Okay, taken much more seriously.
Sure.
There's nothing super new in those section stuff. But just having and we talked a little bit about their beach, which is infilled in every committee, which is a great thing. But, no, it's great.
Thank you so much. Who is going to construction?
Oh, it's good policy, actually.
Oh, please, policy, I'm sorry.
So the policy committee met for the first time last week, and we are looking at the 7,000, 8,000 series this year with the potential of going further depending upon how the work goes, because the volume of information that we have to go through this year is significantly less than it was last year, so we're very hopeful to move quickly through it and perhaps go beyond that. So it was an organizational meeting, and Peter gave us our packets to read, and we also were given the recommendations from NISBA in advance, so it was actually very helpful. So we're going to look over that, and we're going to meet again in January.
That's terrific, thank you. I think we have left in construction.
Construction quick. We welcomed our 2 community members over there, which was great. Capital construction project, we are doing some revisions to the front entry.
Again,
Again, yes.
it's never getting done.
Into the budget.
You mean the landscape?
The thing I'm trying to get done for 7 years.
It's in the budget.
The wiring project is done at Seacliff and the high school. Central office mostly done, and Glenwood Landing and Glen Head pending. We are moving ahead with the alternative energy and photovoltaic or the energy audit. We have the RFP processes underway, and we're going to be looking at hopefully getting some good ideas on that. We talked about the bond for December 10th. We talked about Glenwood Landing fire alarm had to be replaced as a repair reserve project, which is almost there, very close. We talked about the middle school softball field has unfortunately an impediment that we're going to have to try to work through. So it's in the budget. Hopefully that can be done. We have to get past this impediment, which is just there's a new drainage issue from an outside source that makes implementing the design foolish if we're going to have outside water coming into it. So we have to solve the problem with the outside water first, and it's a multi-jurisdictional issue. So
We could do a swimming pool there.
you can do is find a swimming pool.
The George didn't do better than me.
So that's where we are with that. Talking about the vaping devices that we talked about here. And that's pretty much covers it, I think, unless I missed something.
I just want to clarify the energy. We have appointed Ecosystems to do the energy audit as a result of a prior RFP. What we're looking at now to price out is whether we should utilize an outside consultant like we did the last time. We had an energy savings contract to ensure that what we're being told and that is accurate, and the numbers that are being provided by the ESCO are accurate. So it's a two-pronged.
And there's a lot of fact-finding going on, like looking over every bill and really combing through to make sure that we are going to be able to be.
Sort of like what we do with our outside estimator.
Good.
Any other secret committees that wish to reveal themselves?
Has Black met?
Black met last night.
Is that, are you going
I can do it. Go for it. So Black met last night. We talked about the legislative breakfast that the committee is looking to schedule probably for sometime in the early part of the winter. And that consumed a lot of the time. The meeting, the committee also talked about improving their social media presence on Facebook in particular, and still trying to reach out to other districts who might want to work with us or on similar issues with us.
Thank you for your report. Anyone else? Any other secret committees? Wish to reveal themselves this time? That does bring us up to comments from the public. Okay. We'll move on to old business. Anyone?
Very brief one, just wanted to confirm, we get the certificate of insurance liability from the new architects, the old architects in the name?
Certificate of liability, I can answer. Certificate of liability is in place. There's an endorsement page that comes with that NYSER is reviewing right now.
Great.
Under old business? New business?
Very
Yes,
quick.
please.
I've heard a lot
We're
that,
not going anywhere.
that's right, this is so quick, there's nothing to do today, just to note this down and let me know, or let us all know. Word is the Greenhill numbers are somewhat significantly down this year in participation. I'm just curious if you could let us know.
I don't believe that's true, but I will get you the number.
Good.
Trustees, I'd like to make a motion that the board convene in executive session to consider discussions regarding proposed, pending, or current litigation. Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Trustees, you wish to keep this room?
Yes.
All right. We'll let you get up.
Hey, huh?
I will.